Hi everybody. So I want to introduce the chakra series. I'm doing this with Craig Holliday, and we're going to go through each one of the 7 chakras in a more in-depth way than your classic color, food, and emotion association. We just dive in deeper to get a more expansive view of what the chakras really mean. I'll be releasing each video a few weeks apart. I also recommend making sure that you watch them in order so that they all tie in together. Since they're not necessarily meant to stand alone, they're meant to be one gigantic kind of weaving through of a chat. I hope you enjoy.
So let's talk about sacral. You imagine, a couple inches below the belly button. Of course, it's like, an orb, so it'll, go down, into the pelvic bowl. And this sense of power, that's the intelligence that's here, is power. In a human way, if we start with like the human expression of the hara, it's egoic power, it's willpower, a sense of control, like people who are highly controlled or controlling, but in a real healthy sense. Like if you look at like martial arts, they talk about just being rooted, or breathing deeply down into your belly, being connected with this sense of power, this sense of strength. There's incredible muscles here, like in your behind and in your belly. Your core muscles are like some of the biggest muscles, the strongest muscles in our body, and so that's how our physicality can reflect it. It's also where we play with human relationship, romantic relationship, sexual relationships, one-on-one relationships, whereas the root chakra was more like tribal relationships, like how I connect with the tribe or with
As
all
a whole,
of life.
right? And this is like one-on-one interactions.
Yeah, it also has to do, the way it tends to manifest is relationships with finances, with money. When I'm really rooted and I'm grounded and I'm connected with my power, and we tend not to have money issues. We just tend to have this sense of, okay, I go out, I work hard, and I tend to be generally successful. And the key word there is generally. And so I don't want anyone to take any of these teachings and to twist it around, find a way to judge or blame themselves, because that's not the purpose of these teachings. And so, sometimes if we have issues where we've had a lot of trauma, like sexual trauma, or a feeling of like not individually feeling safe in the world, or like I can't trust others, oftentimes that will bleed out into self-esteem issues. It will bleed out into financial issues, not knowing your worth, not knowing that what you are is strong enough to take good care of yourself. And so it's through working with these issues, that we start to wake up in a greater way. If we look at the doorway that oftentimes we have to walk through, in the hara chakra, the sacral chakra, oftentimes it's fear. Intense fear. I want you to imagine, we're a baby, like literally in our mother's womb. We're fully connected, fully held, fully nurtured. As soon as, we are born, they cut that umbilical cord. And when that cord is cut, if you've ever, seen a baby that's born, like there's like a little shock, sometimes a really big shock, and the baby's like screaming, like, what the hell? Like, where am I at? Like, what world am I in? And it's cold, and, if you give birth in a hospital, like they want to, give you shots and poke you and prod you and all this kind of stuff. And the baby gets this shock in its nervous system, and it's like a realization, like, oh, I'm an individual, and I may not be safe. But in theory, the midwife takes the baby and puts it right up on mom, puts her on the boob, she feels the warmth of the mother, and then you develop this sense of safety. You try to develop this sense of safety, the first number of years. That's why it's so important to be a good parent. It's one of the greatest things you can do spiritually is to be very kind and loving and nurturing to your kids, because it helps them to feel safe. The more safe you are, the easier it is, your chakras will naturally be open. But if you've been beaten up by life, the chakras tend to close, and we tend to relate to life in a human egoic way. And so fear, is, it's just like this sense like, I'm not safe. I'm not safe. When we get that shock of the umbilical cord, like all of us have experienced that trauma, like because it is a trauma, even though it's just like part of being born and being human. But sometimes when people they meditate for 10 years or 20 years, and they start to open deeply in their belly, they'll come across this radical existential fear. It's like a ridiculous fear. Like when I faced it, it just felt like 10 million people screaming all at once. And so, within us is this existential fear. It's like the fear of being human, the fear of humanity, the fear of life on planet Earth. It's like all the wars, all that kind of pain that we've experienced as a collective. And then there's this, just real, individual presence that's rooted there. That's like, can I trust? Can I trust? Am I a human animal who's lost in some crazy, meaningless universe? Or am I a divine being? Am I a divine being? And so can you trust and open? Despite what the whole world has shown you, we live in an evolutionary world. We grow through embracing pain. That's how we grow. We grow through embracing pain. If we have a mind, like a human egoic mind in our belly, that says, if it doesn't feel good, I'm not going to do it. You stay stuck. Or if you're totally terrified of everything, you stay stuck. And so in order to evolve out of this mind, we have to evolve out of the fight or flight response. And say, oh, look, there's pain within me. I'm going to meet it with love. The intelligence here is the intelligence of power and fearlessness. So a willingness to be fearless, to be courageous, to be powerful, to take some leaps, to try again, to get back on the horse again. To admit like, oh wow, that really hurt, but I don't have to stay here. Like this is the quality of like the adventurer, within us who's willing to say, yeah, I'm willing to go climb that mountain. I'm willing to walk out into the dark night. I'm willing to go forward and see what I find. See what I find. Most of us, we have just like this grip there in the heart that's stuck like this. And it's through opening and through facing the fear, through meeting it with love, that grip opens and we relax. And then we discover this incredible power, incredible strength. So fear doesn't move you. It still hurts because you have a human nervous system. So I want to be clear about that. People get these ideas that, when you spiritually awaken in these centers, you no longer feel pain again. No, you feel the pain. Your body still lights up. But it doesn't bother you as much because you're connected with this deeper level of being, this deeper level of presence, which is unshakable. Going back to the human expression of it, if we have guilt, if we have shame, if we have like tremendous issues of feeling like the world doesn't love me, I don't belong here, like within those issues, when we have those issues, oftentimes it will feel like literally like there's a hole in our back, like in our lower spine, where we're just losing energy, or it'll feel like it's coming out of like the back of one of the kidneys or both of the kidneys. There'll be this feeling of like of just like tremendous weight, like around your waist and just like weighting you down. A lot of people, they suffer from this. They have this feeling of like they can't fully be themselves here on planet Earth, or they're like beating their head against the wall, or they're not connected with their power, and they're prostituting themselves in one way or another. Just there's ways we just sell our soul. Mm-hmm. And so, for me, I can remember I was in a terrible relationship, but it was a relationship I couldn't leave for a number of reasons. And so I just felt like I was walking around and there was like a sword, in my kidney, and I was just bleeding. Mm. And I had all these issues with my belly, just this tremendous pain, nausea all the time. I was getting really weird sicknesses that, didn't make sense. I always had flu-like symptoms. And so eventually, through leaving that relationship and then discovering my true power, all those symptoms, they disappear. And in its place, instead of just feeling like I'm losing energy, like through like chronic fatigue, there's this sense of total empowerment there. I just wanted to say that because a lot of people struggle with issues, especially spiritual people, where they're not grounded, they don't trust themselves, and they have weird relationships with money, with receiving, with abundance, with sharing their gift in the world, and have a sense of poverty consciousness there. And a lot of it has to do with self-esteem and feelings of lack, and like you were saying, issues of safety. Because when you have an issue fundamentally of safety, your whole nervous system is clenched, and then the energy's not moving. It just gets really confused. Gets really confused.
I think that's so interesting, though. You really inspired me in this essence that even though you can have that fight or flight continuously throughout your life, there's something else. There's that adventure, that powerful part of you that does want to try again and show up despite that. It's kind of, it reminded me of like in the root chakra, you're connecting to that part of you that was untarnished, that's pure. And in the sacral, you're connecting to that part of you that, despite all of that fear, wants to try again and keep going and keep moving forward. It's kind of like connecting to this deeper thing that is more meaningful, that will get you through, instead of focusing on all of that fear.
There's something I want to add there, because you brought up something beautiful. The fight or flight response will eventually, phase out into the background the more you meet it with love and self-soothe. So again, this goes back to, I like to think of so much of the path as literally re-parenting yourself. Yeah. If you have an inner child within you who's stuck in a fight or flight response, through meeting her with love continually, that inner child, she starts to grow into a teenager, then she grows into an adult, and then the fight or flight response only comes up in real life situations. Oftentimes people have this idea that our human self is bad and our divine self is good. No, our human self is an aspect of divinity. It's simply a lower level of divinity, and so we're evolving out of that into something greater. But it's not inherently bad or wrong. Like the fight or flight response is not bad or wrong. It's a gift from God. Like our ego was a gift from God. It's a gift, it was a step forward out of the animal kingdom and into the human kingdom. But then, we get to take another step. We can let go of it and step more fully into the divine kingdom, if we choose.
What about actual sexuality and blockages there? I know that's a huge topic, but just kind of in general, I know everybody has them, whether you were not abused or abused. I don't know if that bleeds into, like you said, the tribal mentality of the messages we get, or whether you have self-esteem issues and can't receive pleasure. Like there's so many aspects of it, right? But everybody has issues with sexuality. What would you say is important in terms of the sacral chakra? How can you move through sexuality in like a healthy way?
When we're working with sexuality, I'm just going to start with just a real quick disclaimer here. The world of sex and sexuality it's a place where we can get in the most trouble, the most danger, and the consequences can be lifelong. A lot of people they get involved in the world of, spiritual sexuality, tantra, whatever it is, and, all of a sudden they're working with, oh, I want to express myself sexually and be comfortable with my sexuality. But you have to remember, expressing yourself sexually is like saying, like, I want to, learn to express my gun, freely. It's like you can shoot someone and it could have a lifelong consequence. It's a serious thing to play with. It's like playing with guns. It's dangerous. People can get. Of course, there's all kinds of, sexually transmitted diseases that you can get for a lifetime. And so I'm never a proponent of just like free open sex.
Well, I've never seen that dynamic ever end up positively.
Never seen it end well. And again, I don't want there to be any sense of judgment like that. It's like absolutely wrong. I just more look at life in the sense of, where could I get myself in a lot of trouble? I like to think of terms, if we're going to explore this thing called sexuality, we do it in a safe environment. And so you brought up this sense of intimacy. So the only way your body will let you, like literally let you, be fully intimate with another is if you feel safe. If you feel safe. And so in relationship, if we're talking about, exploring ourselves sexually, we need to have a partner who we feel safe with. Someone who you trust, someone who's honest. You know that there's clear boundaries. You understand the boundaries. Can you be open? Can you feel the touch of another? Of course, like someone you trust, someone you love, someone you feel safe with. Can you receive? Can you receive? And so I like to, if we're talking about intimacy, just to start real basic. You feel the warmth of their hand, your hand touching their hand. You feel them touching your thigh. You feel the warmth, the radiance. You feel this dance of the energy going back. You're breathing in, breathing out. You know you are safe. You welcome it.
The aspect of sexuality, to embrace that if you're having any issues, is mainly to be able to explore that in the most safe environment, because it's such a powerful thing, because there are so many consequences to unravel, like your nervous system or anything that could stop you from receiving, is that sense of safety.
Any sexual issue is simply a psychological issue in disguise. So any issue of, like not wanting to receive, like we were saying before, well, that probably has to do with safety. If we've had like a lot of relationships with that, or our parents were weird with us with our boundaries, it's not that those things, need to be worked out sexually. No, they need to be worked out psychologically. And when you work them out psychologically, then you just tend to have no issues sexually. Like if we try to work out our sexual issues,
like sexually,
we're going to be a train wreck.
That's so crazy.
An absolute train wreck. Like we're going to be in lots of trouble. So every sexual issue can be worked out psychologically. And so I want to be clear about, psychologically. So it's having deep, loving relationships with others, where you trust them, they trust you, you're honest, they're honest, we speak the truth, we have clear boundaries with ourselves, with our body. And so like when we have clear boundaries, and we feel safe, and our heart is open, we tend not to have issues sexually. Like one of the things that I came into with this world is I had so many previous incarnations as a monk that I thought sex was bad and wrong. And so I had these ideas that the human was dirty, was bad, was wrong. And so I had to work that out psychologically. I had to look at myself and say, what is this human being that I am? Is it bad that I'm human? Who created the human? Is that not God? Is it bad or wrong that I have sex organs and, have, thoughts about, having sex with a woman? Is that bad? No, God gave me those thoughts. That's where those thoughts came from. They're wired into my masculinity. They're wired into me. I'm not bad or wrong. And so, see, I had to do all this work with forgiveness, like forgiving myself for being human, and then embracing the fact, oh, I am human. And then as a human, I don't need to have this internal war. When I was living in a celibate way, I was trying to get rid of being human. Like I was trying to just like cut it out of my consciousness. And it's like, you can't cut sexuality out of your nature. You can't. It's part of being a human animal, and it's actually a beautiful expression of deep connection with another.
You gave me I have no questions about this. I honestly feel like you gave me like this missing piece that like was the last piece to the puzzle in terms of, because I've been thinking that for a while. I'm like, all of these issues that I have deep down have been expressing themselves sexually. Like if I were to like link the theme, I'm like, it's the same thing. But I always was under this idea that one day you'd open up sexually and that like that's how you work through it. And you gave like literally was like a huge light bulb moment. Like, no, of course that is just a byproduct. Sex is just a representation of what's going on. That was so helpful to me. It was like, thank you. Thank you for watching, guys. I will leave Craig's information down below as well as my own. Make sure to catch all 7 videos once they're all released, and I hope you have a beautiful day.